Hello everybody. Today we're going to be talking about the severe weather, and it's going to get a lot more active across portions of the United States over the next few days, mainly in that day 4 through 8 plus period. We're going to start to see a plethora of troughs come to the United States, and are also going to see a plethora of just more moisture coming up here and other things. So stay tuned. Now today we just have a marginal risk, nothing really significant. Tomorrow we do have two marginal risks. This one out here could be something, and we will take a look at that in a second. And actually, why don't we take a look at that right now? Just look at the HRRR one. We'll look at the 18Z model run. We're just gonna look at this very quickly. This is not the main part of our vid, not the main part. And you'll see the main part in a bit here. We're just gonna do a forecast loop. Just look over the HRRR because the monsoon is going to get some severe weather tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, or tomorrow afternoon for them, or into the morning, a few strong storms are possible. And then in the afternoon, we start to see a couple supercellular storms form along a low potentially. And what you're gonna have is a threat for large to maybe even very large hail, damaging wind gusts, and you can't run a isolated tornado, especially with decent shear for Arizona. And that forms into a linear cluster and then pushes off northeast. Now that's the only part that we're going to be using that for. So let's move on. Day 3, no severe weather expected at this point. Day 4 through 8, though, we have predictability too low for the last 2 days. Those last 2 days, Broyles just wrote a whole essay on them. He is mentioning the potential for tornadoes, supercells, wind damage, and large hail. Along with these supercells, we've got moderate instability and moderate deep layer shear in place. Is going to be across the upper Mississippi River Valley into the plains as well, and we will take a look at this. And then beyond that, we do have potential for a more significant severe weather event, which we'll talk about that. So let's just move along here. We're going to start off with the Canadian since we're already on it. And we'll look through that whole model run period. Running a little bit slow. There we go. So you have a cutoff low kind of right here at the beginning of the period. It gets pushed out, and we have a new trough coming in from the Western Pacific. This trough starts to eject over the central United States. This is around hour 1:32. Let's stop it here. I don't know if we're going to be necessarily expecting too much severe weather at this point. The moisture is set into place more over to the east where the trough is. But you could definitely see we got a strong low here along with a huge area of moisture and a secondary low up here. So we're going to be seeing severe weather all the way from Canada into the United States with this one. Now, as we move on to the next day here, this is when the trough really starts to get organized. We can very well see that low pressure right there on 500 millibar, very well distinct. And again, on 850, we have strong wind shear. Looking at the dew points, we have more than enough and pretty darn good surface low there in Minnesota with this. Now, where we also have a plethora of 60-plus dew points getting ejected up into the Mississippi River Valley, and this is going to be mainly a Mississippi River Valley event, maybe even a Mid-Atlantic in the next couple of days due to the fact that they're going to have a lot of moisture there as well. We are going to take some soundings with this event. Now, the next event we're not going to be taking soundings for, that we're going to be looking at, it's just way too far out to be taking soundings for it. A lot of other people are going to be like, yeah, let's go take a sounding. It's a bit too far out for that next event. And I have been guilty in the past of taking soundings way too far out, and my cutoff now is usually after, like, day 6 on the SPC period, so that would be after 0Z, Monday, Monday, the 11th, I would not be taking soundings anymore. Technically, technically Tuesday the 12th. But looking up here at this low, that's an interesting sounding, not much shear, but, look down here at Texas here. Let's see here, not bad, but there's a lot of issues with that as well. We do see there is a decent amount of theta E, not great theta E. Let's look at your CAPE values. Let's look at those. Isolated marginally CAPE values, not really anything significant. I mean, the wind shear profiles are really nice, so that's cool. I do think there'll be more instability than what the Canadian shows. Oftentimes, these models aren't so great at doing that. Let's go a bit further out. At this point, we're not going to be taking any soundings anymore. We're going to go further out on the Canadian model. So, okay. That trough hangs around the Midwest a little bit. And we might see a bit of severe weather activity in the Mid-Atlantic on the leading edge of that. Yeah, maybe a little bit. We'll see. There's that next trough coming in. This one's going to bring a pretty significant severe weather event, in my opinion. Or could could bring a pretty significant severe weather event if everything goes into play. And don't be like, yeah, dude, it's just one model. No, there's multiple models actually showing this, including a bunch of ensemble agreement, which is very rare this far out. Now, at this point, this trough is just nasty. We have 100 plus knots at 500 millbar. It's still very strong at that point. Still strong the day before. So let's look at the day before. So, will you have sufficient moisture the day before? Answer is kind of. You have 60 dews getting ejected, and maybe in a lot of 50s as well. You have decent theta E. Decent theta E. We're just going to see if you have that lapse rate plume over there. And yeah, you do. Then we're going to look at bulk 500 here. Have a lot of it too. And we'll look at precipitation for the heck of it, and then we'll look at height anomaly. Not anything there, but this is a long range model. Don't expect it to process it correctly. And dang. That is a very strong trough right there. Huge negatively tilted trough. A huge negatively tilted trough. And then the next day, that can get just stronger. Canadian wants a 990. That's pretty nice. Lots of moisture getting ejected in there too. And if anything, I would expect a little bit more, to be honest, because the farther range models typically underdo the moisture somewhat. So, we'll watch it. And the Canadian wants a 988 low pressure. This could also bring a rather major snowstorm too if this solution does occur. We have one side that's severe weather driven. So, this side severe weather driven. That side blizzard driven potentially. Once we get down that line. And there's a lot of disagreements between the models with the timing and the trough placement. And the width of the warm sector. That'll all get refined out once we get more models and more runs of this. And this event has actually been getting pushed back on the models as well, which is interesting. Here's a little bit later around 0Z. We still have that very sufficient moisture in place with that dry line. Yeah, you heard me. You hear me say dry line. We got a dry line for once across the plains. But let's go on to the GFS now. Giving you a little bit of a sneak peek on what it's showing. But let's go to the forecast loop. We're gonna first look at the first couple events on here. Just look at this again. It's gonna take a little bit of time to load because my internet isn't great, but you can see here that first trough coming in here. We're probably gonna get a good amount of rain there in the desert southwest over the next few days. Maybe an isolated severe weather event in here as well before that trough comes in with a secondary very weak trough that comes in. Now here's an event potentially for the plains at hour 108. I'm not sure if there's anything here to really support this, but let's see. Yeah, nope, it's just like the precursors of the trough. So there's that trough coming in. Bam! Right about here we actually start to see the first signs of this trough actually doing some severe weather. So let's go here. So we have that good. We have a good jet streak. We do have not bad instability, but light instability. Pretty capped out. If you look at soundings. Now the next day this trough sticks around and we get more moisture to come in here. If we do take some soundings here, right there, again, pretty capped. Now, don't expect the models to really resolve the environment that great still. It's pretty far out. We do have 2 low pressures, though. Actually, 3. One in Mexico right there. We have one here in Oklahoma, one there, and then that's that next system, kind of the next system, kind of. Again, we have good theta E. If we check that lapse rate plume, it's not bad, not great either. But mainly, it's mainly a Southern Plains kind of issue there. There's some Midwest severe weather action, Great Lakes potentially. That wouldn't really do it for severe weather there, but maybe a little bit earlier in the day it would. That's a rather strong cold front that actually gets pushed in there. We have a difference of, well, actually, wait, that's like a boundary there, not really necessarily a cold front, I would say. I'd say that's a boundary. It's a boundary or dry line that gets pushed that far east. 50 dew points on one side, 70s and 60s on another, so that's pretty interesting. I'd say that's more of a boundary more than anything. That's just gonna mean it's gonna have an easy time pulling up that moisture again, which is interesting. Now let's look a little bit further. We see this looming trough coming into picture. The GFS just goes ballistic with it. At this point, this would probably be like one of those day before the day events where you do get a little bit of severe weather. Whoops, I'm not going to be taking soundings this far out. But you do get a little bit of severe weather from that. And if you check your lapse rate plume there, it's definitely there. Like, very, very well there. The next day, actually, that's not the day before the day. That's just, that's actually, the main event. Sorry. I got that messed up. The next day, it's going to be more across the Midwest, if the GFS was correct. And you could tell there's disagreements with the timing, which is going to happen. And then we have this nice hurricane in the Eastern Pacific. And then we have a very strong low-level jet there. And after that, let's go look right here. After that, we get a hurricane to randomly form out there in the Atlantic. That's nice. And after that, you might get a little bit of severe weather if this occurs like out further to the east potentially. I don't know, maybe. Nice 991 right there. Nice, man. Now let's go back to the beginning. Let's go to the Gyro. Now the Gyro has shown this the longest, and it's also been probably one of the more aggressive models until the new Canadian came into play today. Here's that first trough with the Gyro. Gyro wants a pretty good severe weather setup with the first trough as well. That's not good. So I used to take a sounding right now. But yeah, you can see the Gyro puts that moisture up there, and it agrees with all the other models that the moisture's just going to sit there for around a day or so, and then we're going to start to see the severe weather actually come into play. As we see that low pressure up there in Minnesota start to bomb out. We get some good energy there. We have a couple lows with this one. We have one here. We have one here. So both of these could be triggers to have a long line or like area or like scattered area of severe thunderstorms there if this would occur. We have the better low level jet further north, but once it becomes nighttime, we do get a mix of like areas there, which is interesting. Then as we go further out, we still have another day of severe weather left if this were to occur. This is when I stop taking soundings, so I'd stop right now. This is a bit too far out now to take soundings. But yeah, there's that, and then the next trough starts to come in, right here. And this would probably be one of those day before the day situations where you might get a couple severe weather instances. And then there's the main day. The warm sector is just humongous on the Gyro. We have a huge low-level jet, and we have a really good 500 millibar jet. Now, it does become a little bit more meridional, which means a little bit more linear out the day. I mean, it's not that bad. And it's just one model. Stuff can change, but pretty significant solutions. Yesterday had some significant solutions, and last night, too, so something to watch out. Nice lapse rate plume as well. Looming across the area. Now, let's go into the GEFS on College of DuPage. Now, College of DuPage had a huge update on computer, so it's pretty weird now. We're going to look at 500 millbar mean wind. So, we're going to look at that. Here's that first trough coming in. And you can definitely see we have agreement on 50 knot flow, which is pretty good for this far out. Then we have about, let's see here, about 40 knots there. And then it starts to die off. At second trough, we have some really good agreement for the day before. And then again, some really good agreement this far out. Having a 50 knot agreement is pretty rare. Now, we're going to do, we'll do mean. This is like the only supersonic composite I use at all, and I don't even use it. I usually use it for location only. So we see here we have a pretty wide area of it. Don't really have much this far out though. Let's do probability of 1,000 cape. Not very high with that first system based off the GEFS. The second system though, it's got a pretty high probability, so that's interesting. Now we're gonna go on the Euro. This is the regular European model. We're gonna go on those European ensembles. We're going to go look at the upper level wind, and we're going to go look at 500 millbars. So, again, there's that first trough. We have agreement again. The next day, too, we have 40 plus knot agreement, which is not bad. Then the big boy trough comes in. We have 70 knot agreement this far out, and then we have another solid 60 knot agreement. Now, we'll look at the probability for Cape 1,000 plus, and it's there, 20 to 30%. 500 plus, it's 50% or so. At 18Z, it's 1,000 cape is 30 to 40% with even some 50% in there. Around 50 to 60, around a wide 30 to 60% there for the 500. If we go further, with that first system, the odds of getting instability is not very high. Now, if we look at the GE, oh, we already looked at the GEFS. Let's look at the Canadian mean. Let's look at that 500 millbar. So it agrees on that first system coming in there. We'll look at the probability for 100,000 cape, which it's not great. The probability for 500 isn't bad though. Not great, but there's that system coming in there. The probability for 1,000 is already 30 to 40%, which is really good this far out. And again, that's a monstrous trough coming in there. And then for this day, the probability for 500 cape, it's anywhere between 20 and 70%, and the probability for 1,000 anywhere between 10 and 50%. So that's not bad. But yeah, that's gonna do it. Just be mindful that severe weather is gonna be coming on the rise after a pretty big lull of it over the last several weeks. Yeah, it's gonna make the return of me doing these kind of videos. I'll see y'all in the next one.